Hey everybody, Mike Toy Bonsai, Boise. This is my Willow Leaf Ficus, a smaller Willow Leaf Ficus. This is one that started as a cutting off of my main Willow Leaf Ficus a few years ago. Today I'm going to trim it up and repot it. But first, let me give you a little glimpse of where it came from. Going back to last year, July of 23, it was just a cutting in a pot. So I trimmed it up a little bit, wired some of those branches down. Didn't have really a solid plan for it, just kind of seeing how it goes. I'll post a link to this video right here in case you want to go back and see its origin. But for the most part, I just tried to wire those branches down. Took it out of the old soil, trimmed up the roots a little bit. Got it all potted up. It's a little goofy looking at this stage. There's a lot of space in between the lower branches and then the upper branches. But I got it started, got it on its way to becoming something. Here in a minute I'll show you one of the main flaws that kind of has me concerned I don't have a solid answer to yet. That was kind of how it ended that day. Fast forward a couple of months to September of 23 and you can see it starting to grow out and gain some health again. Still kind of just a skinny little guy, but it's on its way, like I said. There's sort of a cluster of branches up top, which I both like and don't like. I wish that cluster was down lower. These Willow Leaf Ficuses, I've noticed, do tend to back bud pretty well. They love to grow like 7 branches out of one spot, which is not ideal. Fast forward to November, had it in the grow tent, took it out, gave it a little bit of a haircut. Trimmed up some branches there. You can see one branch has gone rogue up top to the right. So it's not exactly in an active growing state right now. Being a tropical, it doesn't go dormant the way that a deciduous tree would, but yeah, there's that problem branch. Long, straight branch. So we'll probably get rid of that. But even in the grow tent, they do put on some growth, just not quite the same as when they're outside. Not at all the same, really. So I'm sort of attacking the problem of multiple branches up top, the big cluster of branches. I'm counting on that little bud. Come on, little bud. We need a branch right there. That was kind of where I left it in November. Fast forward a few months to February. I scraped off some of that soil off the top layer because it was kind of green. My fan went out of my grow tent at some point, so things got a little gross for a minute. But look at the base of that. It's starting to really thicken up down there and turn it into a cool little tree. think I actually scrubbed off the bottom of the trunk too. It had some of that green stuff growing on it. So just gave it a little health check, a little bit of maintenance. Probably did a tiny bit of trimming that day, not sure. Fast forward to the 4th of July of this year, 2024. You can see it's grown out real well, nice and full and healthy and happy. I love that base, how it's flaring out down there. It's gonna lead to some good taper. But yeah, it's starting to look like a nice little tree, you know, the beginning stages at least. On that day, I just trimmed it up. Any branches that have, you know, 8 or 10 leaves, take it back to 1 or 2 or 3, just like so. Now light can get in there better and the inner branches don't die off. Time to rewire some branches. So the bottom 2 branches there, I'll give you a closer look in a minute so you can see the issue I'm concerned about. Here it is the following month, end of August. You see it's back budded all over the place. So that's great news. I might not keep them all, but it's good to have options if I want to get rid of some other branches. I've got other little branches that can take its place. Those 2 bottom branches are coming out of what appears to be close to the same spot. That brings us to present day. So you might be able to tell here, the bottom right branch, it kind of comes off and immediately shoots out to the side, which is a little awkward. Someday I'm gonna have to deal with that. Don't know how yet. I keep hoping nature will take care of it for me. But I think it's actually just getting worse. So, time to give it a good haircut and repot it. You can really see a difference in the leaves when it's growing outside in the summertime versus being in the grow tent. So being that it's pretty hairy looking, I usually just start by nipping at it a little bit just so I can kind of get in there and get a better look and see where some of the main branches are versus, you know, other branches. Because the last thing you want to do is just go at it, end up getting rid of something you didn't mean to get rid of. So first I just kind of nip at it and get a better look in there. And I find this time of year to be the best time to repot, or close to it at least, between like August and September. Just because it gives it time, it lets it grow wild all summer for the most part, but still with some time to recover and gain its health before coming in. So you can start to see sort of a pom-pom effect, especially that top part. It really loves to just go crazy up top. So I'm gonna take some big action here. Got other branches that could be the new leader, so I think I'm gonna get rid of the majority of that growth up there. So, timber. So it looks nice and awkward again. Here's a closer look at some of the back budding and some of the branching issues. Looks like the wire cut into the bark just a little. Not super terribly. I got rid of a couple of those back budding and spots and just kept one. That way it didn't grow a big bulge right in the middle of the trunk. So luckily, the bottom two branches, the issue I was concerned with, it's mostly hidden. You have to look at the backside to really see it. When looking at it from the front, it doesn't look so bad. But from the back, you can see it's almost like two arms that are like twisted or something, crisscrossing. But from the front, it looks nice and normal. So I can pretend the problem isn't there for a little while longer. The roots aren't looking too bad. I'm going to do some decent root pruning here. Big fat roots like that, especially roots that have smaller roots coming out further up the root. I can take it all the way back to there. There you go, just like that, because it had other roots. Because otherwise it starts to get lopsided and one big root starts to take over the whole thing. And I want to keep it as fairly even all the way around as possible. Like Nigel Saunders always says, a nice radial root base. I'm not nearly as good with roots as he is, but someday. I think what I really like about this particular tree is that it was just a cutting. So it's not as if I went out and bought an expensive little tree and I just continued with it. It just started as a random cutting in a pot that I just took while pruning my other Willow Leaf Ficus one day. And it somehow is turning into a nice little tree. Nice root base. Nice structure, other than that crisscrossing branch thing. I still don't know what I'm going to do about that. I mean, ultimately, I'm just going to have to make a big cut, but I don't know which one yet. I'm sort of kicking the can down the road. So I'm just going to repot it into the same pot for now. See if I can smooth that part out a little bit. Kind of look abrupt and obvious. I want it to look a little more subtle and gradual and less obvious. One other piece I'll share is I'm starting to find that potting these trees into smaller pots has a weird side benefit. It does help with that root base flaring out, and it helps with the taper. When it's in a big deep pot, I mean, we've all heard that, oh, that's great for the tree, it can gain some health and just grow wild and it'll get bigger, and that's true, but you won't get a big fat root base that way, at least in my experience with a lot of different trees. What you'll get is a long, the trunk might thicken, but all together it will thicken. You won't get that taper because it's not flaring out at the bottom. A smaller pot has nowhere to go depth-wise, so it can only grow radial and horizontal. So it starts to flare out. Just a side note. But anyways, that's a final look at it. Little bit of bite marks from the wire, nothing major. There's where you can see that crisscrossing effect I was talking about. We'll address that next time. For now, I'm going to put it back on the bench. Since I just pruned so many roots, I'm going to kind of cover it up with some other trees just to give it a little bit of shade to help it recover. Please like and subscribe, and thanks for watching. Have a good rest of your day.